Weirdly, this movie is too short to really be a movie, and as an introduction to the characters, I'll see for the most part, it is just that an introduction. Doesn't really deepen the relationship or the characterization. Hello everyone, welcome to the Weeb initiative. I'm your host, the Weeb. This is the show where every other week I'll be talking about anime, manga, and everything in between. This week, following our idol theme for the season, I will start, let's say, a little mini-series because this is one of the animes that actually has a whole lot of releases and instances. So we'll cover it for, I think, 5 episodes. I'll be talking about Wake Up Girls. So, before I start, some disclaimers. Spoiler alert, I'll be talking about... first off, right? I'll be talking about the first movie. So, I'll be talking about Wake Up Girls, The Seven Idols. And just that, really, I may enter in some themes that they engage in the first season because I'm watching it and I'll get there when I get there, but the thing is, this movie is really short, so much so that I wouldn't really call it a movie. It's more like 2 episodes stitched together without the opening between them. But then again, spoiler alert, if you want to go fully blind, you can go there. But just to be quite frank, this first movie doesn't actually show much in terms of development or whatever, twist or plot, whatever. And so that's the disclaimers, really. I'll be just talking about this first movie for this episode, and this spoiler alert as always. So now that I got the disclaimers out of the way, let's first start with the stats. So Wake Up Girls, Seven Idols originally came out in January 2014. It has a runtime of 52 point something minutes, directed by Yamamoto Yutaka and done by the studio Ordet in partnership with Tatsunoko Productions. Ordet, I have to actually give a pause here because Ordet, I think, is not really a big studio, and from what I can gather, they are like, let's say, a team from originally Kyoto Animation that went in and basically founded their own company, and they, from what I can research, they didn't actually work in many projects since, like, I think 2016, if any. Their portfolio was pretty small, all things considered. The one notable thing that they worked on was Black Rock Shooter, which in of itself, it's a pretty different kind of premise from this, and I think in a lot of ways it is way better, but that's a consideration for later. The thing is, right, so this anime is made by a small studio, and now I need to get to the plot so I can actually start to actually explain some stuff. And for the most part, I want to say just a tiny disclaimer in the middle of this whole thing. Generally, I have like 13 episodes equals, I don't know, like 6 hours of animation, so I can condense this into a review. This time I have 52 minutes, so don't expect this review to be anything other than my opinions, really, and my headcanon, because watching this and the first season, I got really opinionated in some stuff. I'll get to why, but it's simple to say, this is not a really long episode. This is really short as a movie and as a review by proxy. That being said, let's start with the plot. So there is this one entertainment company, this production company called Green Leaves Entertainment in Sendai. Sendai is more to the north of Japan. It is outside of the Tokyo, big Tokyo, metropolitan Tokyo. So it is outside of your normal setting. So they really bring up this kind of country bumpkins kind of stuff. This, you are operating in the countryside, and basically they are not in Tokyo, so it is really a smaller town, a smaller city, more or less. So the whole thing kind of sits in a different, let's say, kind of the same setting you are accustomed to, but not really the same. It feels, in chronologically wise, given that this was released in 2014 and what I'm about to say came out in, I think, 2018, 19, I don't actually remember. And the setting for the girls and this whole thing about living in the countryside feels really close to what they did in Love Live Sunshine in some instances, but DNA and the way they approach stories is really different. So that's just a bit of comparison to set the scene for the start of this movie. That being said, this entertainment agency, the Green Leaves Entertainment, it has basically two main people as the heads. So the head really is our, I will say, irresponsible gambler and mostly portrayed as an alcoholic, Tanji Junko, who is this really outspoken president. She's the head of the whole company, but you can get from the very beginning that she's one with really short fuse. She slaps the other person in the room, the manager Matsuda Kohei, who is this really, I would say, inexperienced. It feels inexperienced. It is not so much that he has not worked for a long time. I think actually they comment that he's been in the company for 1 year at that point, and he has no real good experience considering his surroundings, and also he doesn't actually like his job, because for the most part you see these two butt heads a lot, because Junko, as the president of the company, she's really responsible with a lot of stuff and does a lot of stuff on a whim, and Matsuda Kohei is more of the, I would not say straight man for that matter, but he tries to counterweight her decisions, more or less. That being said, the company is really small and they are going through a kind of a crisis, because their last two artists that they had on payroll just quit on them, and so they are without any artists, without anything to make money on. And so on a whim, this is the very first scenes of the anime, Junko has this idea that, oh, you know something that actually is big right now? Idols. And then we get this first look on what will be the antagonist, more or less. They don't actually show up a lot in this movie specifically. The movie is really just a setup for the first season, because the movie has its own, let's say, function, the story, and then the first season actually picks up the story and continues it, really. But we have our first mention of our antagonists, a group called I1 Club, and I in the letter I and 1 and club. And I have to interject here and say that this coming out in 2014, basically after the first season of Love Live, and you know, the antagonist group being called I1, it feels like too much in the nose to not say that this is kind of making fun of the Idolmaster, because it was the release, the original one I'll keep talking about throughout my reviews. The Idolmaster, the one that pushed the idol genre forward, was done by A1 Studios, so it feels like they kind of got their idea there to actually being the antagonist of the Idolmaster. I will talk more about other examples that actually kind of mirror the things the Idolmaster did, but easy to say, right? We get this first look in what will become the antagonist, and then Junko has this idea of, I'll get a bunch of girls and make an idol group. It must be easy and I can earn a lot of money with it. That's the whole thought process, really. And then we are off to the races. The whole thing, the whole rest of this movie is to basically give a bit of an introduction for the girls and show off how they come together as a group, and to basically insert not only the first original song, which, spoilers, it's a banger. I was really surprised on how much I loved that song. It is unironically pretty nice, and for the most part, the way that the group comes together and the whole thing, just to introduce the audience to the characters that we'll be working with for, at the very least, this first season. I don't know what happens in the other movies or in the second season, but given everything, I don't actually think that we will see them for more than one season. I'm getting ahead of myself. The thing is, Junko, in a really, really just bossy manner, just throws Kohei to the street and say, like, go get me some girls. We need girls to make the idol group, and that's the way. And so he reluctantly goes and just starts scouting some girls. And now I need to talk about the girls, really, because they are the stars of the show, but also some stuff doesn't really get clear in this first instance. We have, and I will try to make, let's say, an importance order, more or less, or this, I'm trying to make a point here more than really showing off the girls, because at this point we have an introduction for the girls of where each stand, more or less. Some of the girls are not presented really at all in this first instance of the movie. They have later on in the first season some episodes to show them off, but at this point it is really kind of messy the way they introduce the girls, really. So without much order, but still trying to make a point, we have Katayama Minami, Hisami Nanami, Kiko Makaya, Okamoto Miyu, and then we have who will become the leader of the group, Nanase Yoshino, who has this really short introduction in this movie that she already works in showbiz, so she's a graver model, or just model for some magazines at that point, and so she wants to actually enter the actual entertainment market, and so she chooses to be an idol for that matter. Then we have our, I would say, second most important girl in the group, Hayashida Airi, who, and I need to say this right now, is the carbon copy of Haruka from the Idolmaster. When I saw her design, and this is a thing, right? When I saw her design, I messaged the guys on Discord, like, I need to check if I'm not going crazy. Is this a carbon copy of Haruka without little decorations on her hair? Or am I just out of my mind and I've been watching too much idol stuff? Because, man, her design is the same, I would say, except for the color scheme and so on and so forth. She is the carbon copy of Haruka, basically. And then the one character that is introduced by the middle to the beginning of the film, but just enters the group later on, is the one, I would say, main protagonist of the whole thing, at the very least for the first season. I'm like on episode 7, she's still feeling like this. The main protagonist, Shimada Mayu, who they allude to but don't explain here in the movie, that she is an ex-idol from I1, so she was the ex-center, so she's like top class idol material, and so the whole thing towards the middle to the end of the movie is how do we get Shimada Mayu to be the 7th girl and to actually get this group really together, because with just the 6 that they have to that point, Junko says she doesn't feel them together. She doesn't feel like the group's complete, and so to be the center, they try to get Shimada Mayu as the last member of the group. They go through some stuff. They make their first song with a duo. I don't actually know if this is a reference in the real world. I am sorry for that. I really don't know. They call in a duo called Twinkle, who were, from what I gather, they are actually musicians already established to actually do the first song. And so they get to rehearsing and selling and buying CDs to resell and so on and so forth, just to release this single and be the first major Sendai based idol group. They don't actually show, the girls show it, but the let's say management doesn't show the ambition to actually compete with I1 at this first moment, but the girls already have that major desire to actually compete and be a big idol. That whole thing, that it's kind of normal at this point in the story, and things kind of work out for some time. The girls, for the most part of the movie, are just the 6 of them. They train. We see that Mayu kind of, even though they already explained that she quit from being the center of I1 for unspecified reasons at this point, she regrets. She wanted to quit, but she kind of regrets it because she actually likes it. And so we see this little build up of she wanting to actually help the girls out, to actually train again, to actually perform, and the whole thing kind of works out in a way that at the last moment she chooses to join the group, even though at that point she declined multiple attempts by Kohei to recruit her. She, at the last moment that they need actually help, she chooses to join the group. And so we have our complete group of 7 girls, and then something happens. It's really bad explained. I will not enter in this here because it is a plot point that I don't understand quite well why they needed to put that there. That it is just to actually give the end of the movie some kind of conflict, to actually make the girls go through it, to actually kind of develop. Easy to say, right? They actually get a concert to basically debut and get the single out and so on and so forth. The concert doesn't go well. They are a small group. They don't actually have names yet, and the whole thing kind of goes the way that you would think. I'll say this here, but I'll explain more later. It feels really like the beginning of any of the the mainline Love Lives, where the girls start the group but they don't actually have names, and the first presentation always has something going wrong or no public whatsoever. And then again, this is just the beginning of the story, and from then on the concert happens. We have the first single, and then we go to the first season properly. And the first season basically starts at the day after the concert, basically, and that's basically the whole story of the movie. I don't actually want to enter in much of the details, but now I need to give my opinion. So first thing, right, there are a lot of problems with this one. So first off, and this is something that I already commented here, but I'll need to talk more about it. I don't like the art style of this series whatsoever. I mean, it is competent, and for what's worth, it's okay, but the art style doesn't really fit with me. The colors they use are really... The colors not really the problem. The thing is, the character design are really generic in a way, and the art style in general, be it the line art, the whole thing kind of don't sit well with me. They actually feel like they used some kind of really rudimentary digital animation to actually do the 2D, and I don't know, man, it just feels wrong. The art style doesn't really sit well with me. Add to that the fact that the animation is for the most part, not always, for the most part, not really that great, which in a way, I mean, goes with the fact that I don't like the art style. The animation is pretty stiff sometimes. It feels really not fluid in a way. It's not that it is straight up like bad, let's say. It's competent for what it is, but there are some frames, there are a lot of weird frames that appear. There are some, let's say, some scenes that it feels like they cut the scene like a few frames before they should, so kind of feels weird, and I can't really give a really good explanation here, but like when you cut in a scene with the character still with the mouth open while talking, it kind of feels jarring in a way, and so it has some problems with animation and art style. Then there's the second thing, and this is not a major thing, and in a way I feel like this is nitpicking, but not really, is that this first movie and the first part of the first season, it has some really weirdly placed fan service for some reason. I can't really put my finger on it on why, but there are some cleavage shots that I really wonder why they put it there. The painting shots are non-stop for this movie. It becomes like really apparent that they did it for some reason, and it is, I think that there is a point in the first season that they do it, but it kind of feels weird. The first season has also this problem that it kind of engages in too much fan service from what you would expect from an idol anime. I mean, you could have an ecchi idol anime and so on and so forth, but at the very least, this kind of idol anime I would not expect it in this level. You could have some fan service like lightly placed, but this feels excessive. And from then we get the other major problem that I have with the series. There are two problems actually. The first one is this is the first anime in a while, a real good while, that the main characters actually mix up with the crowd. Like, you know, when there's a scene that the main group is in the middle of a crowd, and there are these like somewhat poorly drawn people around them. This is the first anime that I have a problem that at some point some of the girls are really lost in the crowd. Like, their designs that don't actually flash enough for me to actually know that they are on the scene, or they don't feel really different to the extras. It is really weird in that way. The designs for the characters don't feel quite right. They really mix up with the extras that appear. And then we go to the next problem that comes with it, is that for the love of me, and like I watched this, and I watched like 7, 8 episodes of the first season. I can't really know the names of the girls from my head. Like I haven't really memorized their names. Like, if you put the whole of Cinderella girls, at the very least the anime girls, in front of me, I can name them with 100% accuracy. If you put the girls from the original Idolmaster, I can do it too. Love Live Sunshine, Cinderella Girls U149, Love Live, Nijigasaki. Nijigasaki is the best one, but that's besides the point. And even Superstar, that it is the most recent I watched. I could name every single one of the girls. This is the first idol anime I watch that I could not, for the love of me, I cannot memorize their names. I can't really relate their names to their faces because it is so generic. There are two girls that, depending on the scene, you could say that they kind of mix up, which are Mayu and Yoshino, who basically Mayu is the main girl and Yoshino is the third main girl. You could say that this is just me, but I don't know, it feels weird. The only two, let's say, that I actually got to memorize for real is Airi, because she is Haruka. For me, that is design is too close, man. That design is too close. And Kaya, because Kaya has a more flashy design, if I could say it's flashy. I mean, it is more distinct. It's what I'm trying to say, which is better for Captain ID and so on and so forth. But the whole thing kind of feels weird in that way. The design, the whole art, it feels weird. And from that on, it pains me to say that through all these shortcomings, through all this shit, the designs are kind of weird, the animation's kind of weird, there's this whole thing with the story being really non-existent in a way in this movie, because they just introduced the girls. Really, it doesn't really add much to anything. The girls don't actually have time to actually develop something. They just form the group, sing one song, and then we are finished. And through all these shortcomings, there's one thing good that comes out of this whole thing. The one single they have, it's pretty good. It is actually pretty good. It slaps. And I mean, some people may not like it, and I'm okay with that. I personally think it's pretty nice, and to me that is a win. Let's say at the end of the day, that's a win. The whole thing kind of works out if the music's good. The whole rest of the visual stuff is okay. The girls too, they work out. The chemistry is there somewhat. Some of the girls, I think, are too played out with the tropes. Some of the tropes are really overused. This becomes more apparent in the first season, so at this point it's not really that important. But easy to say, this anime is not the best one. And then I need to actually give the tangent to the fact that this, at the time of recording, is higher in the aggregate score in my anime list, higher than my beloved White Album, which is bullcrap, and I wish I could make more people watch that brilliant masterpiece to actually surpass this one, because this is not great, man. This is not 7.7 great. This is like the 6. White Album was a 10. But that's besides the point. I'm already getting sidetracked here. The thing is, and this is really my final opinion on the whole thing, it has good bones. The idea of this really ragtag group coming out from the woodwork in the Japanese countryside to actually compete with the big guys, and these girls kind of coming together in this really weird settlement. There's this whole thing with the president later on in the movie, and the whole thing kind of feels weird. And this is me right now. I don't actually know what I will call this episode, but probably will be Idolmaster at Home. And I feel like this is the Idolmaster at Home, because it has that same feeling of the girls, the building up, the growing up of the girls to actually enter the market, enter the minds of the people, to actually become actual idols, and so on and so forth. It has that same feeling, that same let's say process, so much so that the first, again, I'm really citing the first season here, because the first season and this movie are basically together. In a way, I should review both together, but at the same time, I think the movie has enough bones, enough, let's say, meat to actually pick out. So it has its own function that is just this first foray, like push to present these girls, to present the music, and to show off the whole kind of thing. I think that Matsuda Kohei, as the manager of the girls, he feels in a way way too close to the producer in the original Idolmaster. I would not say that character design is the same, because it's not, but the attitude, the personality feels a bit too close in certain ways. Matsuda doesn't actually like his job, whereas the producer really liked his, and there are some differences, but I feel like there's too much of the Idolmaster DNA here to not really say anything. And again, I think there are some direct digs at A1 because I1 is way too close of a name for your rival group. And with that being said, before I start ranting more, thank you guys for listening, thank you guys for watching, depending on the platform you're in. Please like, please share, please follow, and I hope you stick around for next time. Bye.